Picture this. The year is 1788. A fleet of 11 battered ships drops anchor in a strange, sun-scorched bay on the other side of the world. On board, not explorers, not pioneers, but over 700 convicts, thieves, forgers, and petty criminals, dragged in chains across 15,000 miles of ocean. This is where Australia begins. Not as a dream, not as a paradise, but as a dumping ground for Britain's unwanted. And yet, within just 100 years, this forgotten prison colony would become one of the richest nations on Earth. How did it happen? How did a land of exiles transform into an economic powerhouse? Tonight, we uncover the wild, brutal, and astonishing story of how Australia built itself and what made it rich beyond imagination. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. And if you have any thoughts to share, feel free to leave a comment below. Now, let's get started. Let's rewind. By the 1780s, Britain had a problem. Its prisons were overflowing. The American colonies, once the perfect place to dump criminals, had just won independence. London needed a new prison. And they found it on a map. A vast, mysterious continent in the southern seas, claimed 18 years earlier by Captain James Cook. They called it New South Wales. On January 26, 1788, Captain Arthur Phillip raised the British flag at Sydney Cove. Behind him stood a ragged army of convicts, soldiers, and a handful of free settlers. They had no farms, no supplies that would last, no idea how to survive. The first years were a nightmare. Crops failed. People starved. Convicts whipped each other under the burning sun. Some tried to escape into the bush, believing, wrongly, that China lay just beyond the horizon. Most died trying. But slowly, painfully, the colony survived. Convicts cleared land. They built roads. They constructed Sydney brick by brick. And here's the twist that changed everything. When convicts completed their sentences, they didn't go home. They stayed. They claimed land. They became farmers, traders, even wealthy landowners. Australia was being built by the very people Britain had thrown away. Now here's where the story gets interesting. Because Australia's first fortune didn't come from gold, it didn't come from diamonds, it came from sheep. Yes, sheep. In 1797, a British officer named John MacArthur imported a small flock of Spanish merino sheep. Most people laughed. Sheep? In this dry, harsh land? But MacArthur saw something others didn't. Australia's vast, empty grasslands were perfect for grazing. The climate was dry, ideal for producing fine, soft wool. Within decades, Australian wool was flooding the textile mills of England. By the 1830s, Australia had become the largest wool producer in the world. Massive sheep stations, some bigger than entire European countries, spread across New South Wales and Victoria. The wealth was staggering. A new class of rich landowners emerged, called the squatters. They built grand mansions. They imported pianos and chandeliers from Europe. They were Australia's first millionaires. But the real explosion was still to come. February 1851. A man named Edward Hargraves bends down by a small creek in New South Wales. He washes a pan of gravel in the cold water. And there, glinting in the sunlight, he sees it. Gold. The news exploded like a bomb. Within weeks, men were abandoning their jobs, their farms, even their families. Sydney emptied. Ships were stranded in harbor because the sailors deserted to chase fortune in the hills. Then, just months later, an even bigger discovery in Victoria, the town of Ballarat, the hills of Bendigo. Gold, gold, everywhere. From every corner of the world they came. British miners, Irish farmers, American adventurers fresh from the California rush, and tens of thousands of Chinese workers crossing the Pacific in search of what they called the New Gold Mountain. In just 10 years, Australia's population tripled. Melbourne, once a sleepy town, became one of the richest cities on Earth. They called it Marvelous Melbourne. Its streets were lit by gas lamps. Its theaters rivaled London's. Its banks held more gold than most countries. And here's the incredible part. Between 1851 and 1896, Australia produced 40% of the world's gold. 40%! Imagine the wealth pouring into this young colony. Railways were built, telegraph lines stretched across the outback, universities rose. Australia was no longer a prison, it was a treasure chest. But every gold rush has its shadow. For the original inhabitants of this land, the Aboriginal peoples who had lived here for over 60,000 years, the European invasion was catastrophic. Diseases like smallpox wiped out entire communities. Land was seized, sacred sites destroyed. Frontier wars raged across the continent, often hidden from history books. And the gold rush brought new conflicts. In 1854, miners at Ballarat, angry about unfair licensing fees, rose up against the British authorities. They built a wooden fort, raised a blue flag with the Southern Cross, and declared themselves free. It was called the Eureka Rebellion. The fight lasted only 15 minutes. The miners were crushed. But their defiance planted a seed, a uniquely Australian spirit of independence, of fairness, of standing up to power. That spirit would shape the nation's identity forever. By the late 1800s, Australia was no longer 6 scattered British colonies. It was becoming something new, something its own. On January 1st, 1901, the colonies united. The Commonwealth of Australia was born. A new flag flew, a new parliament opened, a new nation stood, wealthy, ambitious, and ready to face the 20th century. But the question remained, could the gold last forever? The answer was no. But what came next was even bigger. Fast forward to the 20th century. The gold rush had faded, but deep beneath Australia's red soil lay something even more valuable: minerals, an almost endless supply of them. Iron ore in the Pilbara, coal in Queensland, bauxite, the source of aluminum, scattered across the north, uranium, nickel, copper, lithium, natural gas. In the 1960s and 70s, a new boom began. Japanese steel mills, hungry to rebuild after the war, signed massive contracts to import Australian iron ore. Then came China. As China industrialized in the 2000s, it became the largest customer in human history. Australian mining giants, BHP, Rio Tinto, Fortescue, exploded into global powerhouses. Today, Australia is the world's largest exporter of iron ore, the largest exporter of coal, the largest exporter of lithium, the metal that powers electric cars and smartphones. Every battery in your pocket likely contains a piece of Australia. The wealth this has generated is mind-boggling. Mining alone contributes hundreds of billions of dollars to Australia's economy every year. But Australia's riches aren't only buried in the ground. Today, the country thrives on agriculture, exporting beef, wheat, wine, and dairy across Asia. It dominates education, drawing hundreds of thousands of international students every year. Tourism, from the Great Barrier Reef to Uluru, brings billions. And finance, technology, and renewable energy are now rising fast. From a struggling prison colony with no future to the world's 12th largest economy. From convicts and sheep to gold and lithium. From exile to empire. So how did Australia build itself? It built itself on the backs of convicts who refused to die, on the wool of sheep that grazed where nothing else could grow, on gold dust that drew the world to its shores, on iron and lithium hidden beneath an ancient land. But more than anything, it built itself on a spirit of grit, of reinvention, of believing that even the most forgotten corner of the world, could become something extraordinary. Australia, the land that began as a prison and became a kingdom of gold. Thanks for watching, and see you again in the next video.